this one night, a friend of mine called me up and said, we are going to the Spoke tonight. And the Spoke was one of the on-campus bars at the University of Western Ontario. I don't think it's there anymore. Because there's a couple of great bands performing, and I want you to go see them. I said, okay, who are they? And he goes, he said the main act was a group called the Sky Diggers, and the second act is a group that was just formed that I saw recently in Toronto, and I love them, and I want you to come see them with me. I said, okay, what are they called? I said, they're called the Lowest of the Low. And he was right. They were fantastic. I've been a big fan since not long after they formed in 1991. Steve Stanley created this song for Hockey Day in Canada in 2012 in Prince Edward Island. It's got a special significance to the book tonight because it's called 14 and Me. Ladies and gentlemen, Steve Stanley.
I'll give you 14 reasons Harold Ballard was a bastard. I'll give you 14 ways it could have changed his fate. With a figurative rip of the sea from the Maple Leaf captain, it meant Bobby Clark made the 72 squad in his place. And now he holds a grudge to this day. And except for once, he's always stayed away. But tonight, I'm gonna stay up past my bedtime, 'cause it's hockey night and the Leafs will play the Vancouver Canucks. Yeah, the captain lines up against Orland Kurtenbach, and in Kodachrome, he's got all the speed I'd like. Oh, won't you come back? Won't you come back, Dave Keon?
From Keon and Dave Keon.
I suppose I was always fated to write a book about the Toronto Maple Leafs, although I held the idea at bay for many, many years, thinking it was probably just too obvious a gesture. But being, you know, a dyed-in-the-wool fan. When I was 11, it was suggested to me by my parents that I write a poem about the Toronto Maple Leafs. I don't know where they got this absurd idea that I would want to do such a thing, but it turned out that I did. I sat down at the kitchen table and I wrote a poem about Eddie Shack, who was the entertainer, of course, who played for the Leafs. And it was published in the Toronto Sun in 1974. The Young Sun, right, which was that section reserved for kids. You know, kids would, you know, draw cartoons on napkins and send them in, and they put them in the paper. It's the way the paper's supposed to work, right? So I submitted this poem about Eddie Shack, mostly because I couldn't figure out anything other than neon that rhymed with Keon, and even then I was at a loss to sort of figure it out. Lots of things rhyme with Shack, right? So I submitted this poem to the Young Sun, and it was printed, and then I received a letter from the Toronto Sun that said they were going to send me a free t-shirt. And well, I just thought this was the greatest thing of all time. I thought, well, you can actually write and people send me free t-shirts. This is a career for me. I thought this is going to be, so I thought I'd maybe read that poem. I actually have the original clipping from It's Really Yellow, the Toronto Sun. It's an elevated work, I think. Put on my glasses. Yeah, okay. Eddie Shack. When he's on the ice, he always tries. But carrying the puck, he really flies. Playing the man and shooting hard when on defense, he's like a guard. Flashing skates and scoring goals like a bowling ball, he always rolls. I thought that was a really clever one. Sort of a metaphor, right? Off the ice, he's Eddie Shack, so when you meet him... Exactly. Thank you very much. There we go. And one of the things that hasn't really shown up in reviews, but I should point out is the book. There's a large section of the book that's actually filled with Eddie Shack stories, mostly about him wandering home hammered through the suburbs. They're great stories. He was a big fruit stealer, apparently. He would sneak into people's backyards and steal fruit. And somebody told me once where a kid, when he was young, he's an adult now, but he told me when he was young, he got up in the morning, you know, rubbed his eyes, looked out through the window, and there was Eddie going for a swim in their pool. So, a delightful and glorious figure, Eddie Shack. I'll get to the Keon stuff in a bit, but just before I continue, I would like to thank Penguin Canada very much for publishing this book. Stephen Myers, who set up tonight, and Nicholas Garrison, my editor as well, who completely fucked it over, but in a good way. Thanks, Nick. Okay. Yeah, so this is my 5th hockey book. I'm sort of a hockey literary fetishist in a way. My first book was a book called Tropic of Hockey, which Tim mentioned, which was, I suppose, for me anyways, a bit of a rebellious hockey book because there's very little about the NHL in it, even though I loved the NHL growing up. And Tim doesn't remember, but I actually think the first time Tim and I met, he approached me at De La Salle Arena in the parking lot and told me that he'd read Tropic of Hockey and he loved it a lot, especially a section about Wendell Clark, which meant a lot to me because the book had only been out for about 3 weeks and I wasn't sure whether it was terrible or not. And so Tim really helped make me feel good about what I was doing. And then my next book was called, hockey book was called The Best Game You Can Name. It's called The Morning Stars Hockey Team, of which myself and Steve Stanley have been longtime members. I believe next year we celebrate our 20th anniversary playing old guy hockey. And we've experienced many highs and many lows together, mostly highs, both literally and figuratively. And always a good time. And there are many, many anecdotes. After we won our first championship back in the 90s. Sorry, no, this was actually late. This was later on in the 2000s. I remember coming home, and our daughter was young at the time. She was maybe 2.5, 3 years old, and I got home at 5 o'clock in the morning after having been out celebrating, and forgot that I had to get up quite early the next day. But I thought, okay, I'm going to go to bed, and I'm going to get up, and I'm going to be a good dad. And the plan was to take her, and I think my son, I don't know if my son was around, down to the NFB to watch films and to relieve my wife, Janet, of the day's duties. And I went down and I felt pretty good for 7,000 beers, you know, the night before. And I went down in the kitchen, I was like, let's go, I'm going to take Cecilia to the NFB. And I noticed on the counter was this empty salad bowl. And just the sight of the empty salad bowl made me want to vomit into it. And I was the only other person in the kitchen was my young daughter, so I vomited in the salad bowl, and my daughter ran upstairs to tell my wife, who'd gone back to bed, that Daddy was throwing up in the salad. So I guess that was supposed to be a story about Steve Stanley, but it's really a story about me vomiting in the salad. Anyway, Steve's vomited in his own salad bowl, so he managed to about that situation. People had wanted me to write a Leafs book after having written not about the Leafs. So I needed a central figure in my book. I just needed a reason to sort of get into it in the proper way. And it became aware to me really about 1.5 years ago that I should probably finally do this book and base it around Dave Keon. And the book, as it opens with the story of me in the early spring 2 years ago, sitting at home very defeatedly watching the Leafs play Florida. It was a Tuesday night, I think. And of course, the Leafs immediately gave up 2 goals. They were down 2-0 to the Panthers, which is always, ignominious, even at the best of times, because Florida, the Panthers, Panthers can't skate, am I right? Nonetheless, so they were losing to Florida, it was awful. And I ended up just needing to get out of the house. And I very miserably put on my coat, and I walked down the street, and I was going to the variety store, probably to buy like hickory sticks to make myself feel better or something. And go to Canadian comfort food. And as I turned the corner, I saw 3 figures in front of me under the streetlight at the end of the street, and they were all wearing Leafs jerseys. And I could only make out the names of 2 of them. And they were young, and they were probably stoned on some weird drug I will never try. Baseball caps, tilted, sort of intimidating. One of them had a Phil Kessel sweater, the other had a Dion Phaneuf sweater. And most times, probably, I would either cross the street or I would figure out a way to not have to deal with it. But this time, feeling as miserable as I was about what was happening to the Leafs playing Florida, I just sort of walked towards them. And then they turned towards me, kind of built a little bit of a wall on the sidewalk. And I walked towards them. And I thought at that point they were going to possibly attack me, beat me into submission, and throw me dead into the kiosk near, which I thought would be a poetic ending to my life ultimately. So resolutely, I moved towards them, and the first, and I apologize for the kids who are here tonight, but I looked at them and I said, 1-0 Florida. And they looked back at me, and the big guy said, fucking Leafs. And I said, fucking Leafs. And we had a fucking Leafs conversation, which is really, until recently, the only kind of conversation that Leafs fans really have with each other. So then I went to, as I was going into the shop, I looked back and I could see the name on the third one's jersey, and the name on the third one's jersey was Keon. And seeing that name in the context of what I thought was about to happen, amid sort of the menace of this situation, it triggered all kinds of memories for me of the man, of the player, of the game, of my youth, of the suburbs, of school. And that was the key into which I discovered the way of writing this book. So before I start to read, I should tell you that the book is separated into two sections. One is a third-person account of my life as an 11-year-old attending Dixon Grove Middle School, grade 6 for the first time. You know, grade 6, from 1 to 5, I went to a small primary school, Westway Public School, a school that produced 2 guitar players of note, myself and Leona Boyd, who both went to the school, go figure. I ended up going to Dixon Grove, and different kids, weird kids, kids with weird faces. You're 11, your body's weird, everything's weird. And you're discovering the world. I think I write in the book, primary school was all about like books with farm animals counting multiples of 5. In grade 6, in Dixon Grove, it was very mature. It was Dark Side of the Moon lyrics, written in script on the wall, and photos of Gandhi and Martin Luther King. It was very, very adult, very, very mature. So I walked into this world, and I was terrorized for a lot of that time, or bullied anyways. I guess they didn't call it bullying back then, but that's what it was. I was bullied by this dude, whom I call Roscoe in the book. And he was 11, but he already had sideburns, he's one of those dudes. And he looked like a greasy kind of Rick Derringer guy. Like, he looked like a guy who just did bad stuff. And worse, he was a Flyers fan. And everybody knew that I was this Leafs fan because I talked about Dave Keon the first time in class whenever a teacher asked me what my interests were. I said, Dave Keon. So he immediately, so the book is about my encounter with him my year in grade 6. And I should tell you that the reason I didn't fight back against him was because Dave Keon never fought. He was only ever in one fight his entire NHL career. One year, I think it was 1964, he only had 6 minutes in penalties. He played a very, very fierce but honorable game.